Welcome to Film Freaks. This is Justin Llewellyn.
And Eddie Williams.
And now we're going to be talking about a very popular, well, I want to say very cheesy, but very funny.
But it is popular. It's still popular.
It's very popular slasher horror franchise and comedy of the 1990s, which is the Leprechaun series. Now, I'll admit, like, when I was little, believe it or not, the Leprechaun movies actually kind of scared me when I was little, because keep in mind,
kind of gave me chills,
when I was little, my parents used to take me all the time to go to Blockbuster, so much like with some of the other slasher films I rented from Blockbuster, this was one when I seen the box covers, I kind of got scared by, because every time I'd watch the Leprechaun films, every time I seen his face, he always creeped me out.
Yeah, his face does creep me out,
Yeah, so the film, the first Leprechaun film was made in 1993 and was actually Jennifer Aniston's first film. It stars Warwick Davis, who you may remember from he played Wicket from Return of the Jedi. He was also Willow.
Yep.
Yeah, so this was after coming off of Willow, this was his pretty much started his major franchise role
of his own
stuff series,
his own stuff.
So basically, you have a story that's involving where an Irishman who isn't. It's in the film. The beginning of the film takes place in Ireland, where a man steals gold and he goes home to his wife. He's coming back from Ireland, and then he goes to North Dakota inside this house that basically him and his wife are living at, and they discover that there's this box there's this crate that's inside in this basement, and then pretty much the wife discovers that there's a leprechaun inside, and we start to see that the leprechaun kills the wife, and then the Irishman tries to kill Leprechaun, but he realizes that he's pretty much suffering a stroke, so he isn't able to kill him off. So he keeps him inside. He puts him inside this box to keep him there for about 10 years. And then the rest of the film deals with another group of people that come there, played by Jennifer Aniston and her dad, that go there to go stay at the same house where it's being worked on by a guy.
It was like Jennifer Aniston, her dad.
I mean, there's these three painters. There's a dude who played off of Pee-wee Herman's Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Frances,
the dark hair girl, played in Ticks. She looked familiar.
No, there's. Oh, you mean the kid?
No,
there's
Aniston,
Jennifer Aniston,
the kid, the fat guy from Pee-wee,
and then there's the main guy.
The main guy.
The guy who kind of looks like Kevin Bacon and Tom Cruise mixed together.
Yeah.
And basically, they're three painters that are painting the house and everything. And there's one of them is played by the guy from Pee-wee's Big Adventure, who goes inside the basement and he discovers a leprechaun there. And the rest of the film is pretty much them trying to survive from the leprechaun. And they mix in a lot of comedy with this one, which pretty much became a staple for the series.
Like that part where he ate the gold.
Yeah.
He bit the gold and got sick or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Or all the gold coins were coming out or some shit like
that.
He's getting sick, and then the boy. This was like a comedy, but still kind of like. I remember how Leprechaun didn't have really one-liners in this film.
He did, but it's mainly the later half of the film. Yeah. Okay, the first half of the film, he's basically, very straightforward, where he's trying, because he doesn't have his powers yet, so he's trying to get his gold back. So the rest of the film is him trying to get his gold back, and if they would have gave him his gold, he probably wouldn't have tried to kill any of them, because
he is kind of toned down, even though he's evil in this one. On some parts, he is kind of toned down compared to the other movies. So he's kind of an ass. Yeah,
so the rest of the film is pretty much the rest of the gang trying to find out, there's a situation that happens where the dad ends up going to the hospital, and then
it's when they're fighting the leprechaun.
And then also you have it to where the dude from Pee-wee's Big Adventure and the kid go to this pawn shop where they try to sell the coin, and then that's when we start to see that the leprechaun is actually killing people.
Yeah.
Because in this scene, it's actually kind of hilarious, because in this scene we see that the leprechaun is inside this safe, and he breaks out, and then he starts getting on a fucking pogo stick and starts jumping on the dude a bunch of times.
Yeah.
So he's like, "This old lip he played pogo with his leg.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And then
it was funny. Yeah.
And then there's another part where when he's trying to go after the gang, he gets on this little car that he's going down the road with, and this cop actually pulls him over. And then he's like, well, aren't you a little old for Halloween or something?
Yeah.
He's like, all right, now take that mask off and step out of the car. He's like, I'm 600 years old.
Yeah. Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, the movie does have some blend of great comedy, because I like Warwick Davis, so his kind of mix of dark humor mixed in with this film is really hilarious.
Yeah. I enjoyed it, too. It was your standard 90s horror flick. They didn't think much was going to get out of this. They thought it was going to be like the movie Tick or something like that, where like it just grows on people underground, but really it doesn't go anywhere.
Yeah.
But it ended up getting a big cult following.
Yeah, it did. Like, okay, this film actually was in theaters, but it was very limited release, so it didn't really make much, like, box office wise.
Yeah.
Like,
and I like the Lucky Charm thing.
Yeah, there's when we get to the climax where they actually fend off the leprechaun, in the most ironic way, they actually kill the leprechaun by using the 4-leaf clover. Which is kind of weird, because it's like using a bat against Dracula.
No, do you remember that scene where he's going through the cereal?
Yeah.
And he eats Lucky Charms?
Well, they couldn't use the product of Lucky Charms, but it says, like, Lucky something else. And instead of Lucky Charms, it was, like, some other thing where it's, like, clovers or something. And then he starts eating, he's like, wow, that shit's nasty. Yeah. And then we get to the climax, which involves them having to take down a leprechaun, and they discover that the dude from Pee Wee Herman, who played Francis from Pee Wee Herman, he swallowed one of the coins, and so the leprechaun is trying to kill him by basically trying to get the coin out of his belly.
He's gonna rip his belly
out. And then we see this really funny line from this kid where he used a slingshot to throw the clover, 4-leaf clover to him. He's like, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms."
Yeah.
So that pretty much kills him. And so overall, like, I do like the first film. Like, I
enjoyed it. It's funny.
It's cheesy. It's, it's not what you consider really a good movie per se, but it's still fun.
It's still fun. I loved it. I still enjoyed it. I had fun with it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically what created a mascot for what we had with, like, holiday slasher killers, because we had with Halloween, we have Michael Myers. This one we have St. Patrick's Day with Leprechaun. And so overall, yeah, I give this one probably 8 out of 10.
I'm going to agree with you on that one. 8 out of 10.
Yeah. So then we get to the next one, which is Leprechaun 2, which, again, was also in theaters, but with very, limited release and everything.
That came out in
1993, I believe. It was actually the year after Leprechaun 1. Leprechaun 1 was actually the year... No, I'm sorry. I take it back. Leprechaun 1 was actually 1993. So Leprechaun 2 was actually 1994, which was a fucking big year of movies.
Yep. So,
we get this one, which actually starts in Ireland, because this one you have it to where you have a guy. It actually takes place in the old times, like the Dark Ages. Yeah. So you have a guy who's running away from, like, I think from the leprechaun. He's actually a slave from him, and this one takes a different, like, an interesting spin on it, because this one you have it to where the leprechaun is trying to get married by one of the princesses by having her sneeze 3 times. So she has to make this girl sneeze 3 times, and then he'll be able to get married to her. And what throws him off is the fact that this girl that's in the scene is actually his daughter. So that's what causes him to pretty much stop, not be able to do anything, because he interjects by saying, because I guess here's the rules. If you say "God bless you" or something that interrupts the spell, it pretty much stops him from trying to take control of getting married. Yeah. So he interjects, and then he gets killed, and then because he gets killed, because she's still alive, and because he get married, he has to wait 1,000 years in order to get married to the next descendant of her next ancestor, of her descendant. So we get to 1,000 years later, which involves pretty much modern day, which is actually weird, which is actually something interesting. The only time we see these movies actually take place on St. Patrick's Day. Yep. Because this film has it to where you have the main guy, Cody, and his girlfriend, Bridget, they're going on this tour bus, and you actually get an appearance from Clint Howard in one part, where him and his girlfriend are trying to go on this tour bus where the dude, him and his girlfriend are trying to go on this tour where they're trying to sightsee, like, the famous, like, monsters and like, history of places and stuff.
Yep. And it's funny, also, I do like the Irish music they have in this. Yeah.
Especially the beginning when it takes place in Ireland, and they show, like, the credits and everything. I do like that music.
Yeah, but
anyway, yeah, basically the story goes, Cody and his girlfriend, Bridget, they're having, like, a banter back and forth of trying to go on a date and everything, and then we see that his uncle that he lives with, or I'm sorry, his friend Morty, who at first threw me off because I thought that dude was George Carlin or something, because he kind of looked like
George Carlin,
yeah, but anyway, yeah, him and his friend are living together and everything, and as the movie goes along, you start to see that the leprechaun comes back by basically a bum who is drinking, and he starts, like, spilling some kind of beer, like whiskey.
It was like an old Irish whiskey or something.
No, it's Canadian whiskey.
Canadian whiskey.
He mixes it with the tree that brings the leprechaun back to life, and then the leprechaun comes back, and then he makes this funny joke where he's like, Canadian blend, there's only Irish whiskey. Yeah. And so he rips a tooth out of the bum, and then he goes to
it's gold.
Because it's gold. He's like, oh, I see a nice piece of gold in your teeth, or something like that. So the rest of the film is basically the leprechaun trying to get his bride, because the woman who Bridget is, she's the descendant of the girl from the beginning of the movie.
Yep.
And so basically, the movie goes along. They're trying to stop the leprechaun, and you start to see a lot of comedy thrown in this time. Especially the part where, my favorite part is the part where the main guy, Cody, him and his girlfriend are fighting, and then she tries to get a hold of another guy, and then he tries to take her home with her and everything, and then he drops her off at her house, and then when he's about to leave, she invites him to her garage, and he thinks it's her because, she's basically, the leprechaun this time can do, like, illusions. Yeah. He can basically make it to where there's, like, a hologram or some kind of illusion to throw off people. And he goes in this garage, and he thinks that it's her and everything. He starts making out with her, not to realize that he's fucking making out with a fan, and then he fucking gets his head cut off. Or he takes the fan and starts, like, kissing on it, and then he gets his face, like, cut off.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, this film...
I did like the part also whenever he fucks with Morty.
Yeah.
Because he's drunk.
Well, okay, that's what...
that part, I love that.
We'll get to that. Like, basically, the film goes along where him and his friend Morty are finding out about leprechauns and everything, and that they're able to be tricked with, like, different things and stuff. And so, they actually go to the bar to try to talk to the leprechaun by saying they just, that they'll give him his gold if they get Bridget back. Because he's basically taking Bridget as prisoner at this point, trying to persuade him to marry her. So they go to this bar scene, which is my most favorite scene out of the entire franchise, because this is the first time we actually see St. Patrick's Day actually celebrated. Yeah. Where you see a lot...
I praise the fuck out of that.
Yeah. I do like this part, because they go to this bar, and you actually see Tony Cox in one part, too, where he goes to the bathroom, he's like, hey, man, you want my gold?
Oh, yeah, that was whenever, like, all the... Like, they had midgets where they're all, like, dressed up as...
leprechauns.
Leprechauns, yeah.
Yeah. And then there's a part where he goes to the bar, and then he's talking to Morty. And then Morty's like, well, he's here. And then they see the leprechaun, like, magically shows up right next to him. And then the leprechaun's like, have you talked about getting my gold back? And then he's like, not until we get Bridget. And then Morty kind of tricks him by basically doing a drink off with him.
They do a drink off, and he's like, oh, yeah, drink off. Because, like, he could fucking, like, really, like... Because Irish are known for putting down liquor. He's like, all right, I'll take you on.
Yeah, so Morty, because earlier in the film, he was drinking some kind of drink that the bartender gave him that wasn't actually whiskey, that wasn't actually liquor. It was actually like Coca-Cola that was mixed with water. Yeah. So he was trying to trick the leprechaun by basically drinking it like this, like, I can handle my shit. Like, taking it like this. And then the leprechaun's like, I can handle me, Jake. And then he starts drinking them, like, chugging it down and shit like that.
Yeah, drink the big shit, yeah.
Yeah.
Then he ends up, didn't he fall off the table?
Yeah. And then the other guy, the little people on the other table, they're like Tony Cox, like, come on, let's cheer him on. He's one of us. One of us. One of us.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we get this really funny comedy part where he's basically so drunk and that he's about to fall off the table, and then he starts spinning this ashtray, and then it hits the dude. Yeah. So, and then we get to that next part where he's recovering from like a hangover, and then he kills that one dude that's off. He kills that one dude off of Mad TV.
Yeah.
And because he makes it where he kills him with that coffee pot or whatever.
Yeah.
Or that
but
coffee
then
maker.
there's this part where Morty's getting pretty much desperate, and basically it was like they trapped the leprechaun into that iron thing.
They basically, because here's the thing, we didn't bring this up, but basically every film they kind of changed the way the leprechaun's personality and rules are, because in this one apparently iron kills him, but yet in the first film he could still be in a safe. Remember in the first film when he was in the pawn shop, he was still able to be in a safe and not get hurt. But in this one, because iron hurts him, he can't escape from it. So they put him in a safe where he can't get out. And
he brainwashes Morty.
He brainwashes Morty by saying he can grant him 3 wishes, and so he does. But there's a point to it. Much like
he pulls a Wishmaster.
Basically, he plays a Wishmaster on this, which actually predated Wishmaster. Keep in mind, by pretty much he makes some wishes for his gold, and the gold actually grows inside of his fucking belly.
And then he slices it open.
Yeah. He's like, can you help me? He's like, help me. He's like, well, I would, but you're out of wishes now.
Yeah.
So,
and that pretty much
kills him.
It kills Morty.
So, the rest of the movie, the climax we get to is it takes place in this cave or whatever.
Back where the cave
is, where Bridget's at, and they're trying to.
And he's trying to get her fucked up, or he's got her dressed up all
pretty, where he's about to marry her.
Yeah.
And but you have Cody come back trying to save her, and they pretty much trick the leprechaun by having him eat the chocolate instead of using the coin. So he has the coin, and it I forgot what he did exactly, but it destroys the leprechaun after he tricks him with that coin.
Yeah.
So overall, I do like this one a lot, and actually, to be honest, is because this is my most favorite one, I'm actually giving this a 10 out of 10. Like, I find it's cheesy, but it still is enjoyable because, for one, it expands a little bit more of what the Leprechaun does, but also because of his personality-wise and how they mix in a lot of the comedy and the way that it's actually taking place on St. Patrick's Day, this is actually my favorite one out of the franchise.
Okay. I'm going to go, it's not my favorite of the franchise, but I'm going to go 8.5 out of 10. I enjoyed it better than the first one.
Yep. So then we get to the next one, which actually, to be honest, I actually was supposed to rent from Blockbuster back when I first saw these movies, because I always seen this box cover on the third one I seen at Blockbuster one time when I was younger, and I always remember that cover where it showed like the leprechaun's face over like Vegas, and it shows like his hat on like the street.
Yep.
You know, so. This Leprechaun 3, which came out, I believe, in 1995, I believe?
Yeah, it was like 95, 96. Yeah, it was around there. Yeah.
You have 1995 Leprechaun 3, where pretty much the movie starts with a guy going inside this pawn shop to take pretty much the statue of the Leprechaun.
Leprechaun.
Which we'll get to later, because this does bring up a critical plot point later in one film.
But this one has where Leprechaun has a medallion over his neck, and the guy, just like a pirate-looking dude, he's like, don't take off the medallion.
Yeah.
And then, this pawn shop guy, being ignorant, he ends up fucking taking it off, and the Leprechaun rose back from the dead again, and he beats, and it's funny because I really like I get into the scene because, he's not, really just straight up kill this Indian, dude.
Well,
he's fucking
torturing himself.
Yeah, he's, biting his ears off, disappearing, biting his toe off, and you get to see him, don't mind if I do.
He's like, I love Indian food. No.
Ripped his chewed his toe right off. And that was pretty brutal, too.
Yeah.
It's like, you see it just rip and tear. It's like, oh. Then you see the guy take it through the leg, and then you take it through he takes an arrow through the fucking back of the head or some shit, or the shoulder.
Well, the arm, or something like that.
And then he gets fucking beaten by this little black thing. Then he gets
Yeah.
Well, anyways, it goes into this other thing where a guy named Scott is actually traveling. Yeah,
it shows him that he's traveling to go to college because his parents gave him a check that he wanted to go cash to go to college, and so he basically stops to help this girl out that's going on her way to a casino that's in Vegas.
Yeah, she broke down.
She broke down, and then he tries to help her out, and then he gives her a ride to the casino. They start to get to know each other.
She works for a magic show.
Right, she's in a magic show, and this is actually something really interesting. Like, they go to the casino where he's actually wanting to try to get a tour to go inside and everything, and then she's like, well, if I let you go in there, you got to make sure you don't gamble. So she lets him inside the casino to do whatever he wants, and then she goes to this magician act where she's getting set up. She set up this magician act with the magician, and then we actually get an appearance from Carolyn Williams, who played Stretch from Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
And she's the partner of the other dude. I've seen him in
Stuck on You.
That fucking dark hair guy.
Yeah.
The guy that looks like he played in he did, I don't think he did, but he almost looked like the guy from Twin Peaks.
Yeah, it's not him, but it's another guy.
It looks like just like that dude, though.
Yeah, it's another guy, though.
Yeah. And
the main boss who played off of Stuck on You.
But meanwhile that's going on,
basically
Scott goes to the pawn shop, and he does. I think he's trying to get like a loan or
well,
cash.
yeah, because throughout the film, throughout the course when he's at the casino, he's gambling and he's pretty much losing. He's losing his money because he's got bad luck. Because when he's playing Caroline Williams, his blackjack dealer, he loses his money, and so he decides. She tells him that you can sell your watch and see if you can get some off it, and so he goes to the pawn shop to go check out what he can get,
and then he finds the dude.
Well, the setup to that is this is what kind of threw me off, because one of my main probably cons I have with this one is that they do kind of pad out the whole part with the Indian, because it takes like a long time before anything goes down with the Leprechaun, because the Leprechaun's kind of like fucking with him for a while.
Yeah, well, he finds him dead, and then
because the Leprechaun
he ended up choking him to death.
Yeah, strangling.
But anyways, he goes, and then that's whenever he finds the gold coin that Leprechaun was running and dropped.
And this is the first time where, well, much like the second one, he makes a wish that actually comes true. Yeah, where he wishes that he could be able to win at the casino and get his money back. So he goes back to the casino, ends up transporting there, and starts winning all of his money by basically screwing with the board, because everywhere that he places the coin on where the casino goes, or where the table's at, or where the chip's at, it goes.
He's playing roulette, and where the ball lands, that's where it's laying in the color he chooses. And
he puts the coin.
Not only does he does that, but he wins like thousands of dollars more than what he wished for, and he starts getting filthy rich. Which he ends up meeting Mitch, the casino
main boss.
the main boss, and then other high rollers and shit like that.
Yeah. And so as the movie goes along, you start to see that he's basically becoming a high roller, and then the other part is you're starting to see the Leprechaun is trying to go after him. And before he goes anywhere, one part that really cracks me up is this part where he's exploring around Las Vegas.
He's enjoying the lifestyle.
He's like, golden nuggets. Yeah. And then my favorite part is the part where he comes across the Elvis guy. He's like,
dude's like, hey man, nice shoes there, and he goes, thank you, you know.
And then he's like, well, thank you very much. And he's like, well, that's a nice set of shoes you got there. He's like, well, no, he was like, the Leprechaun's like, fine set of clothes there, lad. And then Elvis is like, well, thank you very much. He's like, those are fine shoes you got there. And then he tries to he's like, well, thank you very much.
And then he's like, hey they fly, and does that. And dude, he's like, Vegas, my kind of town.
Yeah.
And then, dude, and he's exploring, just fucking gambling and shit. Like, shows him on the thing. Guess, like, the girls, he's covered with girls.
Yeah.
And then, like, and meanwhile, while that's going on, you got Scott, who's enjoying his night, and he retires to his bedroom.
Yeah, he gets able to go to a hotel for a room, and while at the same time, he's starting the one girl, Tammy, I believe that's her name. The one girl, Tammy, she is getting pretty much lecture from her boss, who Mitch, the magician, and plus also Mitch, because there's a part that comes around where Mitch is trying to gets a hold of the coin after they discover from Carolyn Williams' character that Scott has the coin. So they go to his room, they take the coin she takes the coin from him, and then he gets the coin from her, I believe, and then he basically makes a wish where he can get the girl, the Tammy girl, and then he's like, I can get her, I'm sure I can. And then this is probably one of my most funniest parts, where basically that Tammy girl, I believe, she basically starts, like, seducing him and stuff, like, under the spell or whatever. Yeah. And she starts going to his room and everything, and she starts moving around. And basically after that,
the thing is with Tammy's, like, don't she have hots for Mitch for a little bit? Yeah,
because she's under the spell because he made the wish.
Then something happens.
Something happens where Carolyn Williams' character takes the wish. Carolyn Williams' character sneaks in the hotel room, takes the coin, and then makes a wish of her own where she wants to be beautiful again.
Which ends his wish.
So basically, whenever someone ends a wish, it goes to the next person.
And so she's disgusted. Well, then the Leprechaun want to pay Mitch back. He comes on his television. He's like, hey, Mitch.
That's a funny thing. Like, the TV pause turns on, and then it shows, like, this woman that's, like, having his fantasies.
Well, that's not it. First, it actually starts with him. Starts with him on TV. He's talking shit to Mitch. Like, do you and all that stuff. Then it goes to the woman thing, where then it switches to another channel, and then it's like the woman, like, oh, Mitch. And then you got the Leprechaun's like, is that good, Mitch?
I was going to say, like, it goes to that where you have the girl who is basically coming out of the TV, coming out of the TV.
Well, first she's not. She's doing this on the TV and going, ooh, Mitch, and stuff like that. Then she starts coming out of the TV, and he's like, oh, shit. Yeah. That dude kind of makes me laugh. Yeah. He's a fucking horny motherfucker, but he makes me fucking laugh.
And so them two are, like, making out and stuff where he's kind of, like, making out for her and everything. And then while at the same time, the Leprechaun is on the TV, and he's doing, like, these different channels and shit, where he's doing, like, all of a sudden he's like a
teacher type thing.
He's like a preacher. Or no, he's like a psychiatrist. So he's like, agony is my pain. He's like, especially you, Mitch. And then he's like, excuse me, did they say my name? He's like, no. Okay. And then the next channel, he's like playing a preacher. He's like, praise the Lord and send in your money. He's like, especially you, Mitch.
Yeah, he's like, all right, that was definitely me.
And then the next one, he's like a fortune teller. It's like, all the signs, casino order days. And then it's like, oh no, it's gonna happen or something like that. And then he's like, that was my name, right? And then she's like, yes. And then all of a sudden she turns into like the weird robot
and electrocutes him to death.
Yeah. So that was one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Well, then you got the part where Leprechaun has a short stint with Scott, because you forgot that part.
Yeah, I know. I remember.
Confronts him first with the coin earlier, prior to the Mitch scene, and he actually bites Scott.
Yeah.
And Scott, throughout the scenes, because you got to think, Scott is the main character, and then he gets bit before the Mitch thing and all that happens. And then we kind of they kind of bump Scott as like a co-star, because you see him throughout periodically, but it starts doing other people, because he becomes like, you can see he's starting to transform into like a leprechaun. He started asking for potatoes. I want some potatoes.
That's the thing. This one, for the first time, which I actually liked, this one becomes kind of an ensemble piece, because everyone has like their own story going on.
That's what I'm saying. Everybody has a story. You got Scotty, you think he's the main character, but after he's bit, he actually becomes a side character, because he's actually transformed into his own tall leprechaun.
Yeah.
Where he wants potatoes, and he likes green.
And then you have this is another thing too they do. Yeah. They do a subplot involving these two like loan shark guys that are going after Mitch and stuff. So the movie kind of in a way, kind of becomes episodic.
Yeah, and you forgot about that before the whole Mitch thing. They actually tried to beat his ass.
Yeah, they were trying to get money off of him and stuff because of the casino hearing. So you're dealing with that, and plus you're dealing with the subplot involving the magician trying to get his, basically trying to get more famous with his like shows and stuff.
But before that chick,
right, where she was trying to do it, and then you also have Stretch or Carolyn Williams' character who wants to be beautiful. So basically, the movie has like so many plot going on.
Yeah. So, anyways, after the whole Mitch incident, Carolyn Williams, she takes the coin. She's next, and that's where she wants to be beautiful, with big boobs and a big ass and all that stuff.
She was looking pretty fine,
and that's where Leprechaun comes in.
Yeah, and then she basically, or he's basically making it to where he makes her. He makes her breasts like so enlarged that it pretty much goes like so large out,
and she's screaming, "Wow, what are you doing?"
And it makes her mouth, it makes her lips like so like sucked in and shit.
Oh, we make them puffy lips.
Yeah,
and then the big ass without a big ass, round ass and stuff, and then she basically explodes because it makes her so big, which was really fucking like gruesome. Like I remember it was a disturbing kind of scene.
Yeah, because he uses. Well, it's funny because he uses an umbrella too when all the guts fly on him.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's that, and then there's
so now she ends up dying.
Yeah, and then we get to the plot involving
this
pretty much
was
Scott.
Gruesome. What? Well, you get Scott doing his whole thing, but there's a subplot where there's another part where basically Tammy loses her job and she's fired, but this is around the time Scott is really injured from his wounds.
And he goes to the hospital.
And before that, he's like talking to her and they're doing their own thing for a little bit, but then he starts suddenly having episodes, like I said earlier, with the potatoes, and then it's really starting to really hurt him. Then he notices his blood's turning green.
Yeah.
And then Tammy's like, "Oh my God, Scott, what the hell?" And then she looks inside him and she notices like he's like transforming into him, as skin decaying, all this nasty shit. While that's going on, you get also a scene where the magician wishes he takes the coin from her, and that's where he made his wish.
Where he becomes a more famous magician.
He doesn't even need that secret shit. He could just fucking just do whatever he wants, and he wins.
And then
while that's going on, you get to the hospital scene where Scott's in some bad shit.
Yeah, where they're discovering that there's pretty much something they can't even specify because it's so rare.
And they did. It's kind of like remind me of Return of the Living Dead, where they did all the vitals and he had no vitals.
Yeah,
they're like, "You're clinically dead right now."
Yeah, and so there was a funny part right there too. I watched it recently, like a couple years ago, where the doctors are looking like at this weird like cutout of what it shows, and I just realized what it says. It says "fuck you" on there. I was like, "Oh, that's what it says."
That "fuck you" thing,
and then he's like, "What? Who wrote this?"
Wrote this, and then they sent him to go to immediate surgery and all that, and the leprechaun pretty much starts killing off all the nurses.
He kills the technician.
Well, Leprechaun kills one of the technicians, but then Scott actually becomes a full-blown leprechaun.
Yeah, he starts talking in the accent and everything. So basically, we're doing
kills
two
a
leprechauns.
Nurse. He's like, "You ain't gonna stick me with that."
Yeah.
And then you got basically a leprechaun versus leprechaun in this.
Which is interesting because I like the whole thing where it's two leprechauns now.
Yep.
So then we get to our climax, which involves the magician pretty much having
the most brutal scene.
We get to the climax, which involves the magician having his magician act, where he puts someone where he's basically doing a person in a box kind of act, but this time it shows that the leprechaun shows up, and then he puts him inside the box and literally saws his ass in half
with a chainsaw, and then he opens the magician in two halves, and all his guts and his blood's pouring out.
That was pretty graphic.
And then everybody starts running from the exits, and then the leprechaun, which Scott which he was starting to turn for a little bit, but then he starts trying to fight it. He fights it, his inner self, into knowing he's a leprechaun too, but I'm going to fight him. I'm going to fight him. And he's pretty much telling everybody, get out of here, and then they kind of have a duel. Yeah. Leprechaun versus leprechaun, power versus power.
Well, it's funny too because they go back and forth on rhyming and shit, and he's like, "No, brother, you," something like that. But like they're doing like their rhyming back and forth, which is what I thought was funny. And so we get to our climax, which involves the leprechaun pretty much getting killed by the gold because basically, Scott takes the flamethrower and starts burning the gold after he realizes that he doesn't want to choose that life.
Yep.
And so
he's like, Leprechaun tries to sucker him to saying we could team up.
Yeah.
Be partners.
Yeah. So, overall, though, I really do like this one. I think because of the Vegas setting and everything, it was cool seeing how the Leprechaun took a lot of different, I like the fact that he was going to Vegas and stuff, and the humor was a lot funnier this time. And while my only big con with the film is that with the first half, with the pawn shop owner kind of dragged out too much. That was my own big thing, because they spent so much time with the guy, they didn't really do much with it. But overall, though, I do like it, though, so I'm going to give it 8 out of 10.
Now, this, to me, is my favorite one. It's something about this one I can't get enough of. It's my favorite of the series. I enjoyed the comedy. I enjoyed the acting. I just had fun from A to Z.
Yeah,
I had a blast with this film. It's something about it. You ever have a movie that you watch and some may not like it, a lot of people may like it, may not like it. It depends, but it's something something about it just stays with you and attaches to you. That's what this film reminds me of. And I don't know, I find myself to watch a lot of scenes. I just enjoyed everything about this film.
I do too. There's nothing I can really find.
Now, I will say that there could be some more they could have added, and then the whole Indian thing, I agree, a bit dragged for somebody that's not even a main character. I like that they kind of expand a little bit, but
no, I mean, it was interesting that I like the fact that they at least took a different approach with it, where he's basically trying to screw with him for a while, but I thought they dragged it out too long.
They did drag it out too long, but it's my favorite of the series, so I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I'll fair enough. Now the next one we get to, believe it or not, was actually, if I remember correctly. Honestly, I'll be flat out honest about this. The next one is actually the first one I've ever watched from the Leprechaun series. When I was little. Back in 1997, when this film came out, and Leprechaun 4 in Space was available direct-to-video at Blockbuster. Now, keep in mind, we didn't mention this earlier, but after the second film, they pretty much went direct-to-video. So, instead of going to theaters. So, Leprechaun 4 in Space was actually the first film I rented at Blockbuster, and basically...
I rented Don's videos.
Yeah. I went to Blockbuster and rented it, and basically the story goes where it's actually in the future this time. Much like we talked about with Hellraiser Bloodline.
And Jason.
Basically, this is the same thing, where you have pretty much a special forces team going after to kill, basically, the Leprechaun. So they're aware of the Leprechaun's existence. They're going after to kill Leprechaun on this planet where he's taken prisoner of this princess who he's trying to marry.
Which is kind of like 2.
Basically, yeah. So,
yep.
And what's interesting about this cast is you actually have a couple of cast members that are pretty famous. The guy, Miguel Nunez from Return of the Living Dead's in it. He's pretty funny. You also have the girl from Home Improvement who played the Tool Time girl. Mm-hmm. I think her name was Jill something. I can't remember, but yeah, you got the girl who played off a Home Improvement as well. And so this movie actually had quite some cast members I was actually surprised by. And so when they get to this planet, they're trying to. In a way, it kind of starts like Starship Troopers, because this came out the same year.
It kind of looks like it.
It's like the same year, because this was actually released the same year as Starship Troopers.
They kind of have a resemblance too.
The same kind of armor and shit.
Yep.
So they get there and they're trying to kill Leprechaun. Basically, they do. They end up killing Leprechaun by throwing a grenade, and the Leprechaun tries to. He sacrifices himself by trying to save the princess by going to this grenade and blowing himself up. The Leprechaun pretty much did something like, okay, that's kind of fucking weird. You killed him off in the first 5 minutes.
Pull a Jason on us.
Yeah. Kill him off, and then basically what happens is there's a guy that's actually pissing on his grave, and all of a sudden you see this weird kind of thing where it kind of stings him, where it's like, well, what the fuck? Mm-hmm. And then they go to space to return to basically give their information to this guy who you only see on the monitors and stuff right now. So, as the film goes along, you start to see that there's one Marine who is going off to make out with his girlfriend and have sex with her and all that, and it basically becomes kind of a pro sex. Basically becomes kind of like It Follows, where you're not supposed to like have sex without a condom or something, because he's like trying to fuck her and everything, and then all of a sudden, like you see, like he's the leprechaun is literally coming out of the dude's like
because he's sucked up into his dick.
Yeah, he's sucked out of his dick. Yeah, he comes out of his like his pants and everything. Yeah. So Leprechaun comes back, and then the team has to pretty much stop him. And as the film goes along, in a way, it basically becomes an Alien ripoff. It becomes basically a ripoff of Alien.
Yeah, it does. It does, with Alien and Aliens together, yeah.
And so the Marines are having to take down the Leprechaun, and then we get some pretty funny comedy with Warwick Davis this time, especially the part where he's doing the "Oh Danny boy, the pipes are curling," and then my favorite part, what we didn't mention earlier, was the part where when they first go to the planet, and then there's this one guy who gets killed by him by that fucking lightsaber, and he cuts his leg off.
I've seen that, yeah.
Where he goes, yeah. So, as we start to see the movie go along, you start to see that there's this weird dude, the scientist, who is trying to use the princess to bring her back to life and stuff, and basically use him as his body part. And what we start to realize is that this actual guy that's behind the scenes is actually like a half, like, he has like a head and like an arm, but he doesn't have like any body parts. Mm-hmm. And he's the guy who is telling the Marines to stop the Leprechaun.
Yeah, he's like a cyborg, but then he's also a dirty rat bastard, too. Because he tries to make deals throughout the film with the Leprechaun.
Yeah. So, as you start to see the movie go along, you start to notice that the Leprechaun is killing them one by one. And I think probably there's a really cool scene where... probably the most gruesome scene is the part where these two Marines are going inside this, like, acid area or whatever, where they have to wear hazard suits, and they can't be in this, like, this weird gas or whatever. And the Leprechaun slices one dude's, like, suit open, and then when they bring him back to the area, the dude's, like, turns into, like, a fucking skull. Which I thought was pretty brutal when they did that.
Yeah, but I thought that one cheesy death they had, where it was around, where it was him and that fucking android fucking dude, and then he hits that one dude with the fucking pan, and the dude's flat like a pizza.
That's what I'm going to get to. Okay, so the whole point throughout the movie, he's trying to look for the princess to get her back and everything. So when he ends up going to where the scientist guy is, the scientist guy tries to make a deal with him and all that. And the funniest part is that he throws a pan at this the scientist's assistant at this guy, and it's hilarious when he gets hit because he turns into like a fucking
big old pizza face.
Yeah, big old pizza face.
And kills him that way. So this is actually becoming more of a gag movie.
Yeah. I mean, this one basically knows that it's aware it's a comedy, so at this point, they weren't trying to take it as seriously. But when we get to the climax, it shows that actually we see that when the Leprechaun and the girl team up, and he's trying to, take her away and everything, he pretty much basically becomes a fucking giant leprechaun.
Yeah, that's when he, does that one, he's like the queen leprechaun. Basically hashing the fucking Alien movies where he's the big boom, boom, he's trying to grab him.
Well, my favorite part is the part where he's looking at his dick, he's like, wow, big is good.
Yeah. I did laugh about that. Yeah.
But anyway, basically, this one pretty much ends the franchise because the Leprechaun gets killed by getting shot out into space after he gets sucked out of the fucking out of the space station,
and so blows him up.
Yep. And then he gives him the finger at the end where he's flipping him off.
Yeah, because he kind of blows up but suffocates too.
Yeah. And then we get some really what's really funny too is that it was cool seeing Miguel Nunez from Return of the Living Dead this time. Yeah. Especially the part where he's like fucking with the dude at the beginning where he's like where the dude's taking a piss and then he's like, oh well, congratulations, Marine. I wanted to give you a hand, but I forgot the applause or something like that. So it was cool. It was funny seeing him again in this one.
Yeah, he is funny.
And but overall, I like this one. granted, it's a lot more cheesier this time, with a lot more like B-level effects that you see typically on Sci-Fi Channel. Because at this point, they were using a lot of fucking CGI, especially when you see a lot of the space station outer parts.
It's sci-fi CGI too.
That's what I'm saying. It's a lot of very low budget CGI.
Yeah. I actually watched it, I think, a year ago. And I noticed it's really outdated.
Well, I mean, it was already outdated to begin with, but I'm saying, like, the CGI was, I guess because it works in that sort of, like, B-level quality that is meant to be, you know, intentionally funny, I can still go with it because, you know, these kind of...
I had fun with it.
Yeah, it's still fun. It's entertainingly bad. It's not as quite as, like, fun as, like, the other three movies as far as, like, what the Leprechaun does, but I still love Warwick Davis, and anytime that he pops up on screen, I'm always laughing, you know?
Yeah.
So overall, I give this one probably a 7.5 out of 10.
Okay. I'm going to go a little bit lower on this one, but I still enjoyed it. It was doable and stuff, but I'm going to go, I still enjoy it like the first four. You know, it's my first four before they get bad.
Yeah.
I'm going to go, it's a tough one, 6.5 out of 10.
Fair enough. Now, after this one, pretty much, I didn't really know where else they would go after this, because believe it or not, the next one we're going to talk about, I didn't realize even existed until I was actually in middle school.
See, I'm a lot older than you, and I remember seeing it pop out of nowhere. I was like, and it's called Leprechaun in the Hood.
Yeah.
In the Hood? I know we went low budget with fucking In Space, but we really getting this fucking bad? And you gotta think, this came out around the time where this whole, like, where everybody was getting really hyped with the rap and the whole black culture and everything, and so everything was going that direction.
Yeah. And the thing is, too, like, the only thing that really got to me, because keep in mind, I didn't see this till years later when I was actually in high school. And because I never rented it when it first came out, because I waited years before I even watched this one. This one stars Ice-T, where he plays a pimp that him and his friend are going to the subway where they discover that there's something they can steal from them because they're thieves. So they go there to look for stuff, and they discover, now here's the weirdest thing, they discover that there's a statue of the Leprechaun that actually has the same, keep in mind, has the same medallion, and he basically is in that statue form like he was in the third film. So in a way, this film is pretty much a fucking prequel to 3.
Yep.
So they take it to where the guy, his friend takes the medallion off from the dude, or from the statue, and the Leprechaun kills him in a really weird way because he stabs him with a fucking comb, you know. And then Ice-T tries to fight him off, and then he puts the medallion back on him, so he goes back to the statue form. So years go by, and then we get to a story which involves these 3 guys that are rappers in this rap group where they're trying to get big to try to go to Vegas. And so as the film goes along, they're starting to try to sell things at like a pawn shop and stuff, but they don't get anywhere with it. And then they try to go to Ice-T, but he pretty much kicks them out because he says he don't want them. And so they try to rob from him, and that's when the Leprechaun comes in, because he tries to, one of them takes the medallion off him and realizing, and one of them takes the medallion off the Leprechaun and he comes to life, and then they take a flute, and this flute actually is the reason why Ice-T became so popular, because this flute can actually hypnotize people into pretty much obeying them. So as the movie, basically the film in a way, it basically becomes kind of like a rap musical, like cross with Leprechaun, because there are segments in this film where they're pretty much taking time out to do a lot of rap segments. There's parts where every time that one of the main guys would be using the flute, it would hypnotize people, and they'd be wanting to hear them like rap and stuff, and then they start doing their rap thing, and that happens like almost 4 or 5 times throughout the movie, and it just becomes like a completely different movie altogether. You know, and so. And as the movie goes along, you start to see Leprechaun is trying to get his gold back, or trying to get his flute back, and is trying to pretty much fend off these guys, trying to kill these guys, and in a way,
it has like that Friday. It tries to mix that whole Black Friday, next Friday humor.
Yeah.
Boys in the Hood-ish type thing.
And then we get to the climax, which involves pretty much... I will say this is funny right here, where this guy and... well, no, what I was going to say was, before the Leprechaun goes after the guys, it shows that Ice-T is recovering, is trying to go after them as well, but then he goes to the club, and then he starts seeing the Leprechaun there, and then the Leprechaun actually starts smoking weed, which I thought was pretty funny. He's like, a friend with weed is a friend indeed.
Yep.
And so... the rest of the film
and he'll sit there and get high with these black dudes just talking shit.
Yeah, because really, there's actual funny parts, like there's actually really parts I do like the part where he basically hypnotizes these dancers there at the club, and there's actually one part where he actually fucks this one girl, and he basically fucks her to death, because he basically hypnotizes her to the point where she becomes like a zombie, kind of, because she has like these green eyes and stuff, and then he fucks her to death. And then the climax involves Ice-T and the other guy are trying to like talk to each other to try to get out of the situation, to fend off their feud from trying to kill each other. And then the Leprechaun comes back, kills Ice-T, and then the fucking medallion pretty much puts him back in the statue form. Mm-hmm. Which, when it ends there, it kind of threw me off, because there's another scene that happens right after that, where the main guy is going to this rap concert, where he is doing his thing or whatever, and then all of a sudden he has like these green eyes, like he's hypnotized. I'm like, okay, how the fuck does that happen if the fucking Leprechaun is in a statue form? That's what I didn't understand. And then we get to the final ending, which is the post-credits, where the Leprechaun is doing his rap thing, which I thought was funny, because I do like his raps, when he's rapping and stuff. So, overall, though, like...
This is where they know that they're just pure cheesy now.
Yeah.
This 4 was cheesy, but it was still trying to make somewhat of a movie. Horror cheesy. This is now just straight up fucking funny and just fuck it.
Yeah. This
is when they said fuck it.
Yeah, this is basically the point where they didn't even want to try anymore. They pretty much became like a staple for trying to push other territories that the Leprechaun can go through, which I didn't like the acting, most of it, besides Ice-T, and I thought that, I mean, besides Warwick Davis and Ice-T, the rest of the film was just flat out fucking boring. And the rest, I mean, I do like some of the comedy bits they throw in there, here and there, but overall, it's just not something that, like, I really remember, like, I really like too much of, because it doesn't have, like, that fun factor like the other films has.
Yeah, it was a down thing, and it's nothing against black culture or anything. I respect what they do, you know, the rap and all that stuff. It's just not my kind of taste.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have our preferences. I love Friday, I love all that stuff, but I thought this was just trying to fill in the whole culture. You know?
Yeah.
Like, everybody had to do the culture.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't know, they could have done the same people, but maybe done it a little different.
Yeah.
You know? I mean, I had some of it was funny, but it was just too over the top for me. It was like, okay, I'm kind of getting a little.
Yeah, and plus the death scenes are a lot more cheesier this time too, especially that part where they're trying to be clever with the whole where he's sneaking up on the fucking pawn shop owner, and then he kills a dude in the most obvious way where you don't even really like. He just stabs the dude with his hands, and then there's like a weird editing part where the other pawn shop owner that he kills, he's like talking to this one girl, like his ex-wife or whatever, or his ex-girlfriend, and he is basically his girlfriend or whatever, and all of a sudden, like, she turns into like this weird zombie form or whatever, and she kills him, but then all of a sudden it cuts to the fucking Leprechaun inside like this bar or whatever. Like, what the fuck, man? Is it?
Yeah, the
like,
editing starts
getting weird.
Really weird. But what's your grade in this one?
This one overall, though, I'd say I'd probably going to give it probably a 4 out of 10. Like, the only points I give it is that I do like some of the rap parts, like, because some of the music I don't mind too much. And Ice-T I like, and I like Warwick Davis, but yeah.
Yeah, I gotta agree on you on that. Ice-T I like.
Well, Ice-T I thought cracked me up in a lot of parts.
Yeah, it does, and some of the stuff was funny, but then a lot of it was just not. I'm gonna agree with you on this one. I'm gonna go 4 out of 10.
Fair enough. And then after this, we basically became a staple at this point. We get to the next one, which I actually rented on DVD for the first time instead of VHS, because at this point they didn't really make any more on VHS, so this was the first time they went to DVD. I rented on Blockbuster Leprechaun Back to the Hood.
The 6th installment.
The 6th installment, which basically involves, at the beginning of the film, it shows a backstory involving how the leprechauns are pretty much foul creatures. I thought it was clever at first because it shows, like, in the beginning, it shows, like, the little text crawl where it shows, like, the little animated segment where it shows, like, the leprechaun going through, like, the books and stuff, and it shows, like, an actual book of that's, like, the 6th chapter. So I do like this opening they use with it because it sets up with, like, the, you know, how it's the 6th movie. So we get to this one where it's pretty much a priest who gets killed by the leprechaun after he steals his gold. And then the leprechaun, for the first time, this is the first time I've seen the leprechaun do this, he gets actually pulled from in hell. Like, it basically pulls a Jason Goes to Hell in this part, where he's getting pulled by demons in this part, where he's getting dragged to hell. So after he dies, there's this, he dies at this construction site. And then this construction site becomes the basis for these group of people that are living in South Central in L.A., I believe, that are just fooling around and stuff like that. And then there's this girl who finds this pot of gold, and she basically discovers that this gold can be used for pretty much anything. So they use it for leverage and stuff like that. And throughout the film, you start to see that the leprechaun comes back trying to look for his gold, much like the other films. And I will say this. One part that does get to me that I really like was the part where when we first see the leprechaun, where he's, you know, looking for his gold and stuff, he comes across this dude that's actually smoking a bong, and then he gives the bong to the leprechaun and he starts smoking out of it. He's like, "Hey, you want a bump?" He's like, "All right, yeah, I haven't had a good smoke in a while, so let's do it."
Yep.
So he starts smoking out of it, and then because the leprechaun's like high as fuck, he kills the dude because he had like a gold coin or whatever, or in his pocket. Then here's a weird part that it's funny, but at the same time it's very fucking cheesy. It's the part where he goes to the kitchen, and then he gets locked inside the refrigerator.
Yeah. He gets fucking munchies and shit.
He's like, "Man, I need to find something to eat." Yeah. And then one of the dudes, like, kicks him in there, and he locks him inside the refrigerator. Yeah. And then he starts smoking that bong while he's still in there. Yep. He's like, So, the rest of the film basically deals with this leprechaun going throughout, trying to kill everyone one by one, trying to get his gold, much like we've seen in the other films. And pretty much it's self-explanatory. Like, there's a situation involving with one girl where she's trying to get a job, trying to just pretty much she's trying to get a career, trying to leave the city and stuff, or something like that. And there's another guy who's trying to get back with her after he dealt with, like, this gang or whatever, and he doesn't like that lifestyle, so he just wants to fall in. Basically get out of it. So in a way, this film, like, it basically kind of becomes like Child's Play 3, where it's dealing with, like, a main plot that pretty much doesn't have nothing to do with Leprechaun, and then the rest of it that has something to do with Leprechaun, you know? Yeah. It's kind of, like, really out of place in some parts.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Because as it goes along, you start to see the Leprechaun is pretty much killing people in such, like, very lousy ways. Yeah. Like, most of the time when he's killing people, like, other than slicing a dude's throat and stuff, most of the time he's just using his hands. He doesn't really use any of his magic.
Yeah, he doesn't really do. It's a lot of more hands-on killing.
Which, I understand
it could be like a slasher leprechaun.
I mean, it is basically more literally a slasher leprechaun, which I understand because they were trying to go for a more darker route with this time. Yeah. But to me, that kind of ruins the Leprechaun for me, because Leprechaun is supposed to be known for magic and stuff. Yeah. And he doesn't hardly use any of his fucking magic in this movie. Yeah. So, we get to, as the movie goes along, you start to see the people get killed off one by one in such like really shitty ways too, especially when most of them are off screen.
Yeah, it was. Wasn't it considered like the most least violent? Yeah.
It pretty much was. Like even the ones that were on screen, like the only ones I've seen that like had like really any. The only ones I remember that had like any on screen deaths was like the Sticky Fingers dude. He got like his throat slashed, and then you had like the one girl where she had like her like where she was strangled or something, but that was really it.
Yeah,
like the rest
they were
of
pretty
them,
lame deaths.
Yeah, they were pretty forgettable. And then we get to the climax where basically for the first time, we get actually a witch or something that's trying to fend off the leprechaun, which actually surprised me because I thought this kind of concept they use with the witch fighting the leprechaun was kind of cool, but they don't really do it too much.
No.
You know, so
this is like when notice this franchise.
Well, she's a fortune teller, but I'm saying like mixing like magic with like witchcraft.
Yeah, you can tell this franchise has pretty much leveled itself out, and it's pretty much done for. In fact, ends up ending the franchise.
Yeah, and then basically the climax ends where the leprechaun... This is the stupidest fucking thing I've seen of this franchise, too. Where the leprechaun... The main girl, throws the fucking box of coins in the cement, and then he goes after him, and then all of a sudden he sinks in there, where he just drowns.
Yeah.
You know, I thought that was a really weak death, too.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I was really turned off by this. I didn't really enjoy nothing about this film.
No.
Then he rips those cops' legs off and stuff.
Yeah, which I thought was, it was kind of cheesy, so, I mean, it had some hilarious...
Because they were talking shit to him and all that. And then you had I believe this one you had a lot of gang shootings more than anything.
Yeah,
there was a lot of gang shootings.
There was more like... It was basically this gang. Yeah, it was like this gang who was feuding with the main guy who was like driving the moped the motorbike and stuff, because this guy was probably in their gang at one point, and so they didn't like that he left him or whatever, and so it became more of a feud with them and shit like that, and it fucking bored me. Yeah. So this one I really did not like.
I didn't either.
I give some credit for In the Hood because of Ice-T and stuff, but this one I found fucking boring and just really just
unfunny. No blood, nothing was really that great.
I mean, I like Warwick Davis, but because they kind of toned down much of his shit in this one, they didn't really give him much to do. So, I mean, it just really felt like, this really didn't really feel like a Leprechaun movie. Yeah. I mean, even though he's in it, I'm just saying it didn't really feel like, it felt like out of place compared to the rest of the films.
Yeah, I gotta agree with you in this. I didn't enjoy practically almost anything. I like some of the, I laughed with some of the minor scenes.
The pot smoking scene was probably like the highlight, but that was really about it.
And then maybe another scene, but yeah, this movie all around was just really fucking trash. So I'm gonna go with a 1 out of 10 in this one. I have a hard time wanting to even attempt to watch it. I just can't get through
I'm the same. Like, besides the pot smoking scene and maybe probably the the anime part, I'm probably gonna go 1.5 out of 10. Like, it's horrible, believe me, because this is the worst one. But after this one, they pretty much called it quits after a while, because Warwick Davis pretty much said that he wanted to do another one after this, but unfortunately, because they couldn't really find anything for a script, because at one point they actually had a script in mind for, this would probably be fucking stupid, but they actually had at one point they wanted to do a Leprechaun Ghost Western, which I thought probably would have been weird.
Like another prequel.
Yeah. Which I thought granted, it would be a different setting at least, but at the same time, it'd just be like, man, I don't know.
What is it going to really do back then?
I know, it's like...
I don't think that would have worked.
Yeah. Though at one point I did hear that supposedly, there was just rumors, but I believe that they were going to do a Leprechaun versus Wishmaster, which I thought could probably work, because them two could work as a crossover.
Yeah, that would be cool to see, yeah.
Yeah, but anyway... After that, they pretty much made, in 2000, I believe it was 13 or 14, I can't remember. But a couple of years ago, they made, it was either last year or the year before last, they made Leprechaun Origins, which, keep in mind, me and him have not seen, so you will not be seeing a review of this film, because me and him have really not really watched much of it, but from what we've seen so far, the movie just doesn't look like a fucking Leprechaun movie.
No. I'd seen a lot more scenes than he did. I watched about 50-70% of this movie. Basically, you get a bunch of teens. Now it's really in Ireland, which I guess the concept is. But this movie was another movie that was actually where they pulled the Hellraiser and a few other films where this was not even going to be a Leprechaun movie whatsoever. It was going to be some kind of creature movie, which hence this creature in this movie is not even dressed like Leprechaun or not even referenced as a Leprechaun.
Right.
Other than, okay, and you're in Ireland, but it could have been any creature that could be big legend out there. But they don't do anything with this. This movie is literally the most flatline movie I've ever fucking seen.
Yeah, not to mention from what I was seeing throughout most of it.
And then they try to copy a scene from the first one because they knew that they couldn't sell this movie just straight off the bat without a big title name. So what they did was they decide, oh well, how about we just say that he's a leprechaun? Do like some kind of remembrance from the first one, like Lucky Charms motherfucker or whatever.
Well, yes, there's a part where the girl is like doing something to kill the leprechaun, and she says, "Fuck you, Lucky Charms."
Yeah, fuck you, Lucky Charms. But the thing don't even wear leprechaun. They don't reference him as a leprechaun in this movie. He's some fucking weird looking alien creature, and basically they're stuck in this like realm that this creature can't leave in these fucking like 9 different fucking columns, like some kind of religious column thing, and he can't leave out of this little boundary. And like, there's a lot of things I could fucking really say, like, okay, all you gotta do is just walk over that, and that's it.
Yeah, it's like well, you could do it this entire fucking time.
And the acting is beyond fucking hideous. It's Revelation Hellraiser bad acting, or worse.
Leprechaun
Might
6
be a tad
bad.
worse. I mean, no, Leprechaun 6 was better than this piece of shit on the whole acting part. That's how bad this acting was. I had a hard time. I actually had to watch 75% of this movie. I had to watch it in different pieces of dividend of over 9 different times because I just could not watch this movie. It was that fucking bad. It's one of the worst movies I ever fucking seen. If I was even graded, it would be an 0 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't really watched the film. I've seen parts of it, but I can't really judge it unless I really watched it. But from what I've seen, yeah, this is one that, from what I hear, is pretty fucking bad. Because how do you take a concept like Leprechaun and try to make it more serious? Because from what I've been seeing, the Leprechaun don't even fucking talk in this one. He's more mute.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's really all we got. For those of you who have seen the Leprechaun films, what did you guys think of it? Comment below. And if you guys like what you see here, you can check more of our audio retrospectives on SoundCloud. And we'll be seeing, and you can check in on YouTube, and we'll be coming up with more retrospectives and other reviews, or we'll be coming more retrospectives coming up here soon. We'll see you guys later.
Later.